NYU Academy. Today we are going to talk about manual testing. It is crash course. This is a fast-paced course. I'll be covering most important topics that are necessary to do manual testing. If you already know about manual testing, then this course will help you to revise the topics quickly. And of course, to become an automation tester, you need to have manual testing knowledge. What is testing? Testing is the process of evaluating and verifying that a software product or application does what it is supposed to do. Benefits of testing are we can prevent bugs, we can reduce the development cost, and improve the performance. Now, testing is a process rather than a single activity. It happens throughout the software development lifecycle. Why testing is important? So we can say uh, for the quality, for satisfaction of the customer, within time and within budget. Software testing helps us to find out the defects as well as errors that we cannot recognize during the development phase. Testing is also necessary to check whether the software produces correct output or not. It is also helping us to check about quality of software. Software testing is beneficial to know about customers' reliability and satisfaction with the product. Software testing helps us to provide high quality software with low maintenance as well as low cost. That means software bugs can cause major problems in terms of time, money, and in many ways. So we need to test the software as much as possible. So, what are the skills required to become a tester? So, you should know about manual testing concepts. Any one of the functional automation testing tools, example Selenium. So, market is going towards automation testing. So, it is good idea to concentrate more on automation testing tools. Any one of the defect reporting tools, example Jira, database knowledge, domain knowledge like retail, insurance, healthcare, etc. Software testing methods. Generally, we have two testing methods. One is manual testing and another one is automation testing. We conduct testing to check whether the software is meeting client requirements or not. Okay, manual testing. So manual testing performed by user physically, like sitting in front of the computer and using keyboard for entering the username, password, and click on sign on button, etc. In manual testing, we watch the actual behavior of the software. Automation testing. We give the inputs and tool will perform operations. We cannot watch the behavior. We can only see the output, whether it is pass or fail. So automation testing is a software testing technique that performs using special automated testing software tools to execute a test case suite. On the contrary, manual testing is performed by human sitting in front of a computer carefully executing the test steps. The automation testing software can also enter test data into the system under test, compare expected and actual results, and generate detailed test reports. Software test automation demands considerable investments of money and resources. Before going further, let's understand SDLC, software development life cycle. So first of all, what is software? The software is collection of computer programs documented to perform a particular task is software. So there are few types of softwares like system software, programming software, application software. What is system software? System software makes the computer system available for use. It manages the computer resources. This software provides interface to the system components. Example, device drivers, operating system and servers, etc. Programming software. Programming software is a software which helps the programmer in developing other software. Example, compilers, debuggers, interpreters, etc. Application software. It is a software which performs operations or functionalities based on user inputs is called application software. Generally, application software developed based on business needs. Example, industrial automation, business software, games, telecommunication software, etc. Application software is further divided into product and project. What is product? Product is developed based on market standards, that is standard requirements for worldwide users. Example, MS Office, Adobe Photoshop, or you can say social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, something like that. It's a product. Project based. What is project based? It is developed based on specific client requirements. Example, any banking applications, any utilities applications, banking applications, we can take example of Commonwealth Bank. Utilities, you can take Synergy, AGL, something like that. Insurance like RAC, HBF, examples. We are moving on to SDLC, software development lifecycle. What is SDLC? The process of planning, creating, testing and deploying a software is called SDLC. This is the process of developing software to fulfill the client requirements within specific cost and time. It is not mandatory that every organization should follow specific software development lifecycle. It varies from company to company depending upon their product or project development. Software development lifecycle models. Depending upon the complexity of functionality and based on the client requirements, we have the following models: waterfall model, spiral model, V model, agile model, prototype model, iterative or incremental model. I'm not going to discuss each and every model in detail, but very high level I'm going to discuss maybe one or two because this is crash course, not spending much in explaining each and every model in detail. Waterfall model. What is waterfall model? This is a linear sequential model, preferably for small applications with clear requirements. So what are the phases of waterfall model? Requirement gathering, requirement analysis, designing, coding, testing, release and maintenance. Okay, let's give a brief explanation for each and every phase. Requirement gathering. It is very first phase where business analyst will sit with the client. Business analyst is going to produce business requirement document, BRS. Then it will move on to the system analyst. Requirement analysis. These are the requirements from the first phase. These requirements are converted into functionalities in the next phase. System analyst will release Functional Requirement Specification Document, FRS. These BRS and FRS documents are very important documents to the tester. So make a note of it. These BRS and FRS documents are very important documents to the tester. After that, it will move on to the design team. Designing. Design architect and senior developers will participate here. Graphical user interface design, high level and low level design documents, database documentation will be released. Nothing much for testers over here. Okay, so for testing point of view, you don't have anything here. Next comes to coding phase. Coding happens once it is done, then it will be given to testing team for testing. So coding will be done by development team. Okay, testing. Test will be developed and implemented by testing team and end users. Then it will be released to production. So once it is final phase is release and maintenance, it will be released to the production, and then the maintenance of the software or applications will be moved on further. So requirements are what client wants. Functionality means how it can be designed. So there are some disadvantages of waterfall model. So the disadvantage is there is no feedback between phases. During development process, it won't allow dynamic changes. Next comes to V model. V stands for verification and V stands for validation. Most of the organization prefer proven V model to develop the application. In V model testing, activity starts in parallel with development activities. That is, testing activities will start parallel with development activities, and also they give same weightage for the testing activities with respect to the development team. What is verification? Verification is the process to check the completeness and correctness of the document which are prepared to develop the project. Verification comes under static testing. It is performed on documents like business requirement specification, functional requirement specification, design documents, test planning, and test case documents. So there are three verification techniques. One is reviews, walkthroughs, and inspections. Validation. What is validation? We validate the applications to know whether it is giving expected result or not. Validation is actual testing of an application. Validation testing techniques: unit testing, integration testing, functional testing, and non-functional testing. Testing methodologies. There are two types of testing methodologies. One is exhaustive testing and another one is optimal testing. Exhaustive testing, nothing but a testing an application in all possible ways, which is impossible to do that because it is not easy. We cannot test in all possible ways. Can we? No. Optimal testing. Optimal testing is testing of an application with the best possible ways. If you write some test cases and say we have written best possible ways for testing, is that right? No. There should be some ways or some principles that talks about optimal testing. There are two ways for doing that: black box testing and white box testing. What is white box testing? White box testing techniques are used to validate the source code of an application. Generally, it is performed by development team. What are the techniques of white box testing? Path testing, control structure testing, conditional coverage, loop coverage, mutation testing. Not going further into these details, jump onto black box testing. Black box testing is validating of an application functionality based on client requirements. Is called black box testing. You do not need any programming knowledge because we are not testing the coding. Techniques of black box testing: boundary value analysis, equivalence class partition, error guessing. Jump onto system testing. System testing is nothing but a validation of application based on user or client requirements and expectations. Is called system testing. System testing focuses on below things: functional testing, non-functional testing, GUI testing, and usability testing. What is functional testing? Functional testing is a type of software testing that validates the software system against the functional requirements or specifications. The purpose of functional test is to test each function of the software application by providing appropriate input, verifying the output against the functional requirements. Functional testing focuses on object properties, input domain, database, error handling, calculations, links, cookies, and session. Object properties are nothing but text box, radio button, all those things, your enable, disable, entering values, etc. in the box. Input domain, inputting the values with respect to the length. When we talk about entering the values for username, we have specific number of characters. It allows some alpha numeric characters with certain limit. Techniques. So techniques are of course equivalence class partition for checking the values, boundary value analysis, for length checking, like username and password allows only 4 to 8 characters, and it allows only lowercase characters only, like from A to Z. And that comes to database. We perform data manipulation language operation statements like select, insert, update, and delete. Error handling, validation of error message for the quality of understanding, whether it is simple to understand or not. Calculations, validating mathematical calculations. Links, we can see the existence of links to check whether the links are working, navigating to the appropriate location or not. There are different types of links available. Internal links, that is within the page. If you click the link, it moves within the page. External links, if you click the link, it will move to the different page within the same application. So, and another type of link is broken link. Broken links we keep for the future use without having any functionality to that one. Cookies and session. Cookies, of course, it's not a cookie for eating. It is a temporary internet files which are created at client side. When we open any websites, this file contains user data. So it helps us to load the web page in faster way. Sessions. Sessions are time slots which are allocated to the user at server side. So secure applications, they don't encourage cookies, like banking applications. So these banking websites allow only sessions. That means if you are inactive for 5 to 10 minutes, it depends on functionality of the banking, so you will be disconnected, session will be disconnected and you will be logged out. So these are called sessions. Non-functional testing. In order to do non-functional testing, first we need to perform functional testing, and for non-functional testing we need separate environments. We cannot perform functional testing and non-functional testing in same environments. So testers don't perform non-functional testing generally. Okay, so you may get chance to perform non-functional testing, but it is very, very rare. So types of non-functional testing. Performance testing. Performance testing is further categorized into load testing, stress testing, volume testing. And next, security testing, recovery testing, compatibility testing, configuration testing, installation testing, and sanitation testing. Okay, so when we are working as a tester, so you'll be hearing a lot of different terminologies like ad hoc testing. Testing is carried out without proper planning or documentation. With the knowledge and application, the tester will perform random testing is called ad hoc testing. You're getting my point? The tester will have the knowledge of the application, but he checks randomly, the random functionality of the application. Next, monkey testing. Monkey testing is slightly different from ad hoc testing. In ad hoc testing, tester will have the knowledge of the application, then he conduct the random testing. In monkey testing, the tester will perform the testing randomly without the knowledge of the application. Tester will not have the knowledge of the application. He just jumps here and there, from one module to another module to check whether that particular module is working or not. Retesting. Testing the functionality repetitively is called retesting. Testing with multiple input values to confirm whether the business logic is implemented or not. Testing functionality in the modified build is to confirm whether the bug fixes are made correctly or not. Regression testing. It is conducted on modified build to check whether the bug fixes or the functionalities added newly to the build have made any deviations from the required functionality or not. Sanity testing. This is a basic functional testing conducted by testing team whenever they receive build from the development team. So just understand, this is basic functional test conducted by testing team whenever they receive build from the development team. So that means whenever we receive a build from development team, we test whether the application is testable or not. So that means we log in to the application with the user ID and password. Just we do some basic checks, whether we can open the links, whether we can enter values, something like that. It is very, very basic one, whether it is in a testable condition or not. That is called sanity testing. Smoke testing. This is also basic functional testing conducted by development team or testing team before releasing it to the next cycle. Similar to the sanity testing, we conduct basic testing after receiving from the development team, and smoke testing is we conduct the basic testing before releasing it to the next cycle, whether the software is testable or not. End-to-end testing. Testing the overall functionality of the system, including the data integration among all the modules, is called end-to-end testing. So we test everything from opening of the application till the closing of the application. So we do testing of each and every functionality without missing anything. Exploratory testing. With the name, we can say we explore the application and understand the functionality, then adding or modifying the existing test cases for better testing is called exploratory testing. You got my point? We are exploring the application and understand the functionalities of it, and then add or modify the existing test case so that we can get the best testing cases is called exploratory testing. Globalization or internationalized testing. So this testing is designed for global users, like languages, date and time settings, all those. I mean, if you are opening an application in Australia, you should be in a position to change the language settings to maybe Indian language, Hindi, or Spanish, German. So you should be getting all these settings in the website. Next comes to localization testing. So localization testing, it checks whether if you are opening an application, for example, website in Australia, you should be getting the language as English and currency as Australian dollars, date and time, local Australian standard time. If it is designed for a particular location, then it is called localization testing. Positive testing checks whether the customer requirements are justifying the application or not. Negative testing, testing the application with negative perception to check what application is not supposed to do, is called negative testing. Software test life cycle, STLC. Software testing life cycle is a process used to test software and ensure that quality standards are met. Tests are carried out systematically over several phases. During product development, phases of STLC may be performed multiple times until a product is deemed suitable for release. Phases of STLC: requirement analysis, test planning, test design or test case design, test execution, defect reporting, and test closure. So before going to the requirement analysis, so we need to start the test. So it is called a test initiation. To initiate the test, generally the test manager will initiate the test with the help of test strategy document. Test plan, a document describing the scope, approach, resources, and scheduling of test activity. It identifies test items, the features to be tested, the testing task, who will do each task, any risk requiring contingency plan. Okay, requirement analysis. Requirement analysis, in which the test team studies the requirement from a testing point of view to identify testable requirements, and the QA team may interact with various stakeholders to understand requirements in detail. What are the activities of the requirement phase? Identify types of tests to be performed, gather details about testing priorities and focus, prepare requirement traceability matrix RTM, identify test environment details where testing is supposed to be carried out. What are the deliverables from requirement phase? Requirement traceability matrix RTM. Next comes to test planning. Test planning is a phase in which a senior QA manager determines the test plan strategy along with efforts and cost estimates for the project. Moreover, the resources, test environment, test limitations, and the testing schedule are also determined here. The test plan gets prepared and finalized in the same phase. What are the activities of test plan? Preparation of test plan or strategy document for various types of testing. Test tool selection, test effort estimation, resource planning and determining roles and responsibilities, training requirements if you have any. What are the deliverables from test planning? We we need to have test plan or strategy document and effort estimation document. Test design or test case design. The test case development phase involves the creation, verification, and rework of test cases and test scripts after the test plan is ready. Initially, the test data is identified, then created and reviewed, and then reworked based on the preconditions. Then the QA team starts development process of test cases for individual units. Test case development activities. Test design development activities. Create test cases or automation test scripts if applicable. Review and baseline test cases and scripts. Create test data if test environment is available. What are the deliverables from test design? Test case or test scripts, test data. For executing test cases, we need to have test environment setup ready. Test environment setup decides the software and hardware conditions under which a work product is tested. Test team may not be involved in this activity if the development team provides the test environment. The test team is required to do a readiness test. That is smoke testing of the given environment. Test environment setup activities. Understand the required architecture environment and prepare hardware and software requirement list for the test environment. Set up test environment and test data. Perform smoke test on the build. Deliverables from test environment setup. Environment ready with test data setup, smoke test results, etc. Then it comes to test execution and defect reporting. Test execution phase is carried out by the testers, in which the testing of the actual software build is done based on the test plans and test cases that we have prepared during the test design. The process consists of test script execution, test script maintenance, and bug reporting. If bugs are reported, then it is reverted back to development team for correction and retesting will be performed. What is defect? A defect in software testing is a variation or deviation of the software application from end users requirements or original business requirements. What are the test execution activities? Execute test as per the plan, document test results and log defects for failed test cases, map defects to test cases in requirement traceability matrix RTM, retest the defects that are fixed, track the defects for closure. Deliverables from the test execution. Completed RTM with execution status, test cases updated with results and defect reports. Finally, test closure. Test cycle closure phase is completion of test execution, which involves several activities like test completion reporting, collection of test completion matrices, and test results. Testing team members meet, discuss and analyze testing artifacts to identify strategies that have to be implemented in future. Taking lessons from the current test cycle. The idea is to remove process bottlenecks for future test cycles. Test cycle closure activities. Evaluate cycle completion criteria based on time, test coverage, cost, software, critical business objectives, and quality. Prepare test metrics based on the above parameters. Document the learning out of the project. Prepare test closure report. Qualitative and quantitative reporting of quality of the work product to the customer. Test result analysis to find out the defect distribution by type and severity. Deliverables from test cycle closure, test closure reports, and test metrics. So this is about STLC, software test lifecycle. Next comes to actual testing. So what are the important things? So when we called test scenario, test case, and use case, so what is use case? Use case plays a significant role in the distinct phases of software development lifecycle. Use case depends on user actions and response of system to the user action. It is the documentation of actions performed by the actor or user and the corresponding behavior of the system to the user actions. Use cases may or may not result in achieving a goal by the actor or user on interactions with the system. What is test scenario? A test scenario is defined as any functionality that can be tested. It is a collective set of test cases which helps the testing team to determine the positive and negative characteristics of the project. Test scenario gives high level idea of what we need to test. What is test case? A test case is a set of actions executed to verify a particular feature or functionality of your software application. A test case contains test steps, test data, pre-condition, post-condition developed for specific test scenario to verify any requirement. The test case includes specific variables or conditions using which a test engineer can compare expected and actual test results to determine whether the software product is functioning as per the requirements of the customer or not. Okay, so to understand further about test scenario and test case, let's see one example. Generally we prepare test cases in spreadsheet. If you have any tools for preparing, so we can prepare it. So generally the structure of test case documents will look like this. It may vary from company to company, organization to organization, but it is more or less same. Okay, so whenever we start designing the test cases, so we need to mention the project name. So for the time being, so I'm just giving an example for Gmail. So we are going to test the Gmail login. So this information will be given in a functional specification document. So before in hand for designing test cases, we don't see the final build, like final Gmail application in front. So we have to prepare the test cases by looking at the documents. Okay, so module name is login, so we are testing the login functionality of the Gmail, and then here created by who is creating the test case document, give the name and creation date, and reviewed by, so all the test case documents should be reviewed by test lead or some senior test engineers, and when it is reviewed. So whenever we are talking about test scenario and test case, so you need to have test scenario ID so that we can identify whenever we report any defect to the development team. So that is why, so the test scenario ID starts with T for test, S for scenario, underscore GM. This is the project name. So Gmail, so I'm taking the first letter from the G, and then next is GM. So you can use any meaningful name here, nothing specific. TS underscore GM underscore 001, that is the test scenario 1. And test scenario, this is the description. What we are testing, we are verifying the functionality of the login of Gmail. So verify the login functionality of the Gmail. Next comes to test case ID. So similar to the test scenario ID, we need to have test case ID so that we can match with the requirements. Okay, so for identifying the test case, I've started with TC. TC is test case underscore the project name, so Gmail, and which module we are testing here, login functionality, so login module, and then the ID to identify particular test case. And so in test case 1, what I am doing is, you need to test the application in different ways. Different ways means in optimal way, best possible ways of testing. So initially we test with a valid username and valid password, and then we test with valid username and invalid password. So in first case, if you enter the valid username and valid password, then system should allow us to enter into the inbox, Gmail inbox. When you are entering valid username and invalid password, it shouldn't allow. When you, at the same time, if you enter invalid username, invalid password, it should not allow, and also invalid username and invalid password, then also it should not allow. Okay, so these are the test cases. We have to return test case for each and every action that we perform, like enter valid username and enter valid password. This is one test case. Okay, and enter valid username and enter invalid password. This is test case 2. Next, enter invalid username and valid password. Test case 3. Enter invalid username and invalid password. That's it. For testing the login functionality, we will be having only 4. Test steps. Test steps are nothing but what we are doing one by one. For example, why test steps are important? Suppose you are a test engineer, you developed these test cases, all of a sudden you went for a leave. If a new tester joined into your team to cover you, or if you have a junior test analyst in your team, if you hand over this document to him, then he should be in a position to follow the steps. So the test case document should be very much clear so that it can be understandable by anyone. Okay, so that's why you have to list out detailed test steps here. So that's why launch the browser. Okay, launch the browser, enter URL, so URL of the Gmail application, and enter valid username, enter valid password, click on login button. So we should have preconditions. What are the preconditions? You should have valid URL here. Okay, and then you should have test data ready. This is preconditions. So at the same time, for valid username and invalid password, these are the steps, and for invalid username and valid password, these are steps, and for invalid username and invalid password, these are steps. So for all preconditions, you should have the valid URL and test data. So test data is nothing but actual data so that we can test the applications. Okay, so username cdr, and you have to enter valid password. This is not the actual password, just I am giving for example only. Okay, let's conduct testing. So testing the application. Oh, I forgot to mention the valid URL here, but you should have here the valid URL. This one for Gmail. gmail.com. Oh, it is very big. Okay, so let's start with the valid username and password. Go here, enter valid username. So C Reddy R, this is valid username. If you click next, then it is asking the password. Enter the valid password. The password which is written on the document is not valid password, so I'm not sharing this one with you. And not now. Yeah, so you should see the home page. As per the post conditions, user should see the Gmail inbox. So this means we have got the post condition correctly. So expected results is successful login. So here in actual result you have to return successful login, and status is pass, and executed by name, and date executed today's name. Okay, so in dd mm and yyyy format. So comments if you want to add any. Similarly, execute all these test cases. Let's sign out. So this time enter now next try with enter valid username and invalid password. Post conditions invalid username are okay. Go here and just remove this one to make it easy. Next comes to you are entering the valid username and invalid password. So valid username is credr and invalid password some dummy thing credr. Next, and some wrong password something, and next wrong password and try again or reset the password. Let's see what the message should get. Yes, wrong password, try again or click forgot password. Yes, this is the expected result. So this is success, not success. So you copy and paste here, actual result correct, and this is pass. So why the test case is pass? We are getting the same output what we are looking for. That is why this test case is passed. Okay, and next test case. So you enter the invalid username, and valid password. This one C Reddy R something 1232 something. Okay, 1232. Yes, this is not available. Next, could not find your Google account. Okay, so post conditions it should say invalid username or password message. Okay, so message could not found Google account. Yes, this is correct. So this is the expected result and we got the actual result is same, and this is pass. Okay, so next one. So this one is almost similar to this one, because when you enter to invalid username it gives straight away could not find the Google account. So I don't have to execute this test case again because we are executing the same invalid username. If you want to execute you can try, and the actual result is this one, and this is also pass. Okay, so this is how the manual testing is being conducted. So you should have the test scenario, test cases and test steps, pre-conditions, you should be available with the test data, post conditions, and expected results. Then the status pass or fail. Okay, so we met with all things correctly. When the test case status will fail, even if you give the wrong username or wrong password, then if it is allows you to see your inbox, if you doesn't get any error messages, then it is a fail, because it is not meeting the requirements. If it wants to fail, then it should fail, then it becomes pass. Okay, so that's all for today. So in next sessions we will be focusing on automation testing tools. So this is bit theoretical part. I'm not sure how you are going with it, and from next session onwards we'll concentrate on more practical with real time examples. So until then, bye.